What's good, everybody? TayKZY back here with another wrestling review. Long overdue is my Kobe World review. So I have been pretty busy this month, but I also did the Blue Moon podcast for their all-in preview and post-show, which I talked about Kobe World a little bit on those shows, and then I did Doc Lariat's podcast, the PW scription, the prescription, with a W in the middle. That's Doc. That was also an all-in post-show, where I think I talked Kobe World a little bit. So just to get the all-in matches on here, I didn't watch the whole show. I still haven't, because a lot of the undercard didn't interest me. The two world title matches, I gave 3.5 stars to both. I was a little lower on both than everyone. Omega Okada 5, I gave 3 3/4. Swerve Ospreay versus the Bucks was my match of the night at 4 stars. I also watched both gauntlets. I didn't really like either. Probably give the women's like a 3 and the men's like a 2.5. I really didn't like the men's. Best show of the weekend in Texas, or best match of the weekend in Texas, was Bandido defending the ROH title against Kikuta Takeshita. I went 4 1/4 there. That was my second best match of the weekend. I'm pretty light on July, but I gave the FTR Outrunners match from Collision a 4 star, and I gave KENTA KENOH from Noah this past weekend, or not past weekend, the weekend prior, July 20th. I gave that match 4 stars as well. I would recommend that one. That one's really hard hitting, really good. FTR Outrunners match I wouldn't recommend. It's a very impressive performance from FTR because they're carrying 2 broomsticks essentially to a 4-star match, which was interesting, but I feel like it's a pretty paint by numbers standard, like classic tag match. Alright, so getting into Kobe World. So I wanted to do a Kobe World, do a Dangerous Gate preview. There's only 2 matches announced right now, but I think they're pretty big deals. And talk about where Dragon Gate is a little bit. So we'll go through the card real quick, and as the storylines progress, we'll talk about those as well. So the opening contest was Paradox, a team of Suzumu Yokosuka, Kagetora, and BB Hulk, taking on the 3 kids in Mochizuki Dojo, which is Daiki Yanaguchi, Akira Sahara, and Ryo Fuda. In my prediction, I thought Sahara would pin BB Hulk. I got that completely wrong. This was just a 3-minute nothing squash match to kind of get the guys on the card. Suzumu pinned Sahara, I believe, in like 3 minutes. So not a lot there. I went 2 stars on it. It's fine for what it is, but it's so fast. There's not much to say about it. Second match of the night was an 8-man tag. So this is your Ultimo Dragon get on the card match. Ultimo Dragon, Don Fujii, Yasushi Kanda, and Shachihoko Boy took on the Kung Fu Masters and Ryoya, the Prom Dragon. Kung Fu Masters is Ho-Ho Lun, Genki Horiguchi. He goes as Ho-Lee, and Punch Tamanaga, who goes as Reach Tamanaga. Assuming those names translate correctly from like a horror website. Ultimo Dragon's entrance was longer than this match. He won with a roll-up on Tamanaga, just like I predicted. I also went 2 stars here. Not a whole lot here, but that's kind of undercard matches for you. Next up, there was the Gaora TV title match. I thought this was much better than I expected. So Takashi in a 5-way defending against Misaki, Mochizuki, KZ, Naruki Doi, and Kai. I predicted this one correct as well. Takashi pinned Kai with the, I think he calls it the Cyber Bomb, the old Cyber Kong power bomb, running power bomb. Takashi did exactly what he should have done in this match. He hit his spots. He's over. Then he would get out of the ring, and Mochizuki, KZ, and Doi worked the majority of this match. Make it passable. I thought this was a good 3-star match. I thought this was actually pretty fun. I'm going to save Madoka Kikuta and Strong Machine J towards the end. Just talk about that all at once. Ryoya Tanaka had his crowning moment winning the Brave Gate against UT. I went 4 stars on this match. I thought this was really good. This was 4 1/4, maybe even 4.5, except Tanaka botched the finish at the end, which sucked. But he's really coming to his own. We'll talk about him more a little bit later. But a good statement match from him. And then what I would call probably the most disappointing match of the night was Hiroshi Tanahashi and Dragon Kid taking on D-Courage, Yuki Yoshioka, and Dragon Daya. Tanahashi's knees just are what they are at this point. And with the G1 right around the corner, my heart was hoping he would do a lot more in this match. My brain kind of knew he wouldn't. The brain was right here. Not a whole lot to this. This was a 3-star match. This was really just to set up Tanahashi giving Yuki Yoshioka the high fly flow frog splash maneuver. And then next up was my match of the night and the match of the weekend. The 3-way elimination opened the Triangle Gate match. The Young Brats team of Yoshiki Kato, Ishin, and Hamare defending against Love and Peace, Jackie Kamei, Rita, and Mochizuki Jr., and Team Mexico, Luis Monte, Flamita, and Oni El Bandito. This was like classic, picture-perfect Dragon Gate lightning speed the whole time. Everything was crisp besides Bandido. I gave this 4 3/4, and if Bandido had not had 3 botches in this match, this was a 5-star match. This was incredible. You need to go out of your way to check this one out. The whole sequence of Love and Peace. So Love and Peace is the first team eliminated. But the whole match up till their elimination I thought was 5 stars. I thought they were doing some breathtaking stuff, moving as lightning fast as you can. The match was still good once they were eliminated, and you had Team Mexico and Z-brats in there, but the best stuff was all in that opening. Bandido had a couple botches in that second half. Really liked the final third after the first elimination. That felt like it took the air out of the match. When I rewatched it, it really doesn't. I think I went 4.5 live because those botches really took the wind out of your sails. But rewatching it, they're not nearly as disruptive as I thought. Strong closing finish to this match as well. This match rocked. As of right now, this is my number 4 match on the year. It's not only the best match of All In Kobe World Weekend, but up there for best match of the year. The semi-main event was the Twin Gate match, Kota Minoura and Jason Lee taking on Ben K and Hyo. I gave this one 3.5. I don't have a lot to say on this one, really. Going into the night, I thought Love and Peace would win one of the belts, so I assumed that was going to happen. You got Z-brats interference at the end to keep the belts on Kota and Jason Lee. Hindsight, knowing where the stories go, I think that's the right decision, but it was a bit deflating live. So before we do the main event, we'll go to Madoka Kikuta and Strong Machine J in a no disqualification match. This is actually match 4 on the night, but it ties together with the main event here. I went 4 stars on this as well. This was pretty much as brutal as Dragon Gate gets. I thought for a hardcore match with Dragon Gate, it kind of fit the Dragon Gate style oddly, where there wasn't a lot of plotting, there wasn't a lot of setting up spots. You have a little bit of that, of course, but they kept the action flowing, which I really liked. Kikuta got to show his viciousness. Strong Machine J got to be a face in peril a little bit. I believe he got jumped on the ramp when this match started, so he worked from underneath the whole time. But he excelled at that, which was surprising because he's been kind of just a raging ball of fire since April, which has really worked for him. To do the babyface in peril and do it well was a nice touch that I was inspired to see. And then in the main event, you had YAMATO versus Shun Skywalker for the Open the Dream Gate title. So the way I kind of looked at this show going in is kind of like chapters in anime where we are in this Paradox chapter, which was, so I jumped back into Dragon Gate at Kobe World last year, just kind of on a whim because I was down on AEW, and YAMATO was part of the group Paradox, which formed not too long prior to me jumping in, which was kind of all the vets from the golden era of Dragon Gate, or at least what I refer to as the golden era. You had YAMATO, Naruki Doi, Dragon Kid, Suzumu Yokosuka, Kagetora. BB Hulk, I think, wasn't quite in the group. I believe at Kobe last year, he had been kicked out of Gold Class and was fighting Shun Skywalker, but he hadn't joined Paradox quite yet. But he joins not too long after that. So it's all the guys I was familiar with, so that was kind of my team to jump back in. Paradox was, and YAMATO specifically, was working an angle where, hey, the young guys haven't stepped up, the houses are down, no one is stepping up to be the ace of Dragon Gate, so YAMATO came back to take it. He had the belt for pretty much a year, taking on all challengers, waiting for someone to finally best him. And it felt like that had run its course. You could have stretched it out a little longer, but you'd just be stretching out for the sake of stretching it out. So he does ultimately end that chapter and lose the belt here to Shun Skywalker. And that's why in the post-match, Madoka Kikuta kicks out Shun from Z-brats, saying he's weak, and essentially jump-started our next chapter here. So Kikuta and the Z-brats likely are going to rebrand to a new heel stable. Dragon Gate factions typically don't last that long. Z-brats been around about 3 years, so they're ready for a shift. I don't think they're going to disband. I think just with Kikuta as the new leader kicking out Shun, they'll rename to something else. I believe that was the deal with RED as well. RED never disbanded. Shun just kicked out Ita, and they rebranded from RED to Z-brats. So similar thing here, which sets up a pretty interesting scenario. So before we get into all the scenarios, kind of fantasy booking, I want to talk about Dangerous Gate as well. So we have the top 2 matches of Dangerous Gate announced, which the main event will be Shun Skywalker defending against Madoka Kikuta. And I'm like 100% certain Kikuta's winning. Shun's losing the belt in defense 1, so he won't get a keep. So Kikuta will have the belt. He'll have Shun's group. He will have betrayed D-Courage, shaving Yuki Yoshioka's head. And he will have this kind of blood feud with SMJ, Strong Machine J, with a lot of mask ripping, beating him. I think he knocked him out, if I remember it, at Kobe. So he didn't even pin him. He knocked him out and left him laying in the ring. And so I think Kikuta's going to have this real dominant heel run here. So all of the Dragon Gate stables will... Before we get to that, the other match that was announced this weekend was Ryoya Tanaka made his first... Well, no, he defended the belt on the 23rd. So that was his first defense. Then he pinned Mochizuki, I believe, on the 27th show and challenged Mochizuki to wrestle for the Bravegate belt. So the co-main of this show is Ryoya Tanaka defending the Bravegate title against Masaki Mochizuki. So Tanaka has been one of the big risers here lately. He's putting it all together. I don't know that he's bulked up, but he just looks more cut. He's probably about the same size. And his wrestling has gotten more crisp. Botching the finish at Kobe notwithstanding. He's really coming into his own, and as the young bottom of the totem pole guy in D-Courage, 4th out of 4th, now he's being presented as the top guy in D-Courage, which I think is correct, because he just has more momentum and more aura to him and stuff than Dragon Dai and Yuki Yoshioka, which is crazy and unexpected, but it's working, and Dragon Gate's running with it, which I think is awesome. So he's going to get a big win, probably the biggest win of his career, because there's no way they're putting the Bravegate belt on Mochizuki. That would be crazy. So he's going to beat Mochizuki on August 17th. We won't get both singles titles changing, but Kikuta is going to win the Bravegate belt. So that was the other thing that kind of inspired me to want to make this video, is where we're at with the units in Dragon Gate. So Shun and Hamare got kicked out of z-brats. Kikuta's going to rebrand z-brats. Love and Peace, I think, is safe, as they're newly minted. Whatever the new z-brats team will be, they have 7 members right now, but Gianni Valenta is one of them, so they have 6 full-time members. That feels about right. They could kick out Ishin down the line. Ishin's probably the next guy in the group due for a face run, but I don't think they need to do that immediately. Love and Peace has got 5 members. They all fit together really well. I want to see them keep doing their thing. Benkei's part of the Reiwa 6. So that's the only thing I'm a little hesitant about, if they go back to the Reiwa 6 well, with Hyo also having history with Kikuta and Shun. But I think that faction's safe. Paradox is in a weird spot. I don't know what else you really do with Paradox, but the problem is I don't know what else you do with the rest of those guys either. They could add Takashi, or if Natural Vibes breaks up, I think KZ and UT both fit in that group as well. So I think Paradox probably hangs around. Maybe they become like grumpier and more ass-kicky. Maybe they add in Fujii or Mochizuki or something and really just become like grumpy old men. You could do something else with that group. They seem a little stagnant right now, but that's just because that Paradox arc just ended. But I think you can do more with that group. So then you kind of get down to D-Courage is a 3-man group with Flamita and Team Mexico. Team Mexico is a 3-man group. I don't know that they're a full-on faction, but they are the Triangle Gate champs right now. And then if we take Flamita out of Natural Vibes, which he's not even necessarily a full-time member because he's not in Japan full-time, he goes back to Mexico. Then Vibes is also a 3-man unit. Vibes has also been around a long time. And I think the natural thing would be Strong Machine J comes back for vengeance on Kikuta, and they do a unit disbands match, either 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. Flamita's still officially a member, and you have Kikuta beat him there. So then Kikuta takes away Shun's faction, Strong Machine J's faction, and you could even repeat that and do it with D-Courage and have him dismantle D-Courage as well. So ultimately, this arc isn't going to be about Kikuta. It's going to be about Shun making that face journey and undoing his 3 years of madness and everyone on the roster hating him. Because there aren't lone wolves in Dragon Gate. he will eventually have a faction. It's just a matter of how they want to tell it. So you could slot Shun and Hamari in with Team Mexico fairly easy. That's clean and easy. It's not necessarily compelling to me, but it could be pretty interesting. You almost have like a new version of Masquerade, because you would have Hamari and Monte without masks, but Hamari's been wearing Shun's entrance masks. Monte used to be Diamante with a mask, and then Flamita, Benito, and Shun Skywalker all wear masks. So you could almost do like a Masquerade 2.0 with Team Mexico if you wanted. I like the idea of Team Mexico sticking together, so whether they're with Shun or you add in like Genki Horiguchi and UT in there, and then Team Mexico just becomes a full-time Team Mexico thing, I like both those ideas. I think Natural Vibes is definitely going to disband. They're down to 3 members if Flamita's out. I don't know what you do with Big Boss Shizumu when he comes back. But it feels like you want to start fresh there. You don't want to just slot him back into Vibes. KZ could easily fit in Paradox, like I said, so could UT. And I think one of the more interesting things you could do is if you have Strong Machine J, Yuki Yoshioka, and Shun Skywalker all end up in the same faction. I think that could be really compelling. I don't know what you do with Daya. Daya has a lot of ties to Shun Skywalker as well. So Shun and Hamari could just join D-Courage. The only problem with that is you wouldn't have a lost post in that group if you have Shun, Hamari, Yoshioka, Daya, Ryo Tanaka. Daya would almost have to be a lost post in that group. That's why I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think D-Courage and Vibes will both get disbanded, and we'll get a group or two out of the remnants of that. Maybe Ishin gets kicked out and he joins the secondary group out of that. Maybe like Doi turns heel and joins Kikuta and Paradox. Nah, but I just don't know what to do. Yamato has to lead a group, so I think Paradox has to stay. The other group that has members, so then the other thing you could do with Shun, with everyone hating Shun, is Shun could just get all the kids that he hasn't betrayed or poked and prodded at yet. So you have the Mochizuki Dojo, Daiki Yanaguchi, Akira Sahara, Ria Fuda. You also have Kazuma Kimura debuting on August 5th. I wouldn't be surprised if Shun tries to I blanked on the word there. Tries to convince him to join up with him there right after that debut match. I don't know. I don't think they've progressed that much in the story of Shun forming a new group, so that's probably too soon. But that's something you could potentially do there. What journey is Shun going to go on is ultimately the story. Is Shun going to take the easy way out and kind of recruit the kids? Is he going to try to make peace and get forgiveness with guys he's betrayed in the past, like Luis Monte, like Dragon Daya? And then how much of Kikuta's Reign of Terror, how tyrannical is Kikuta going to be? How far are they going to go with that? I think he's going to disband at least one unit, which I would bet is Vibes. But I could see him going full tyrannical and disbanding Mochi Dojo, D-Courage, maybe even Paradox, maybe even Love and Peace. I wouldn't love disbanding Love and Peace, but if he's going faction to faction, and you want to build up this super babyface team, especially if you want to put all the Reiwa 6 together, then you kind of have to disband Love and Peace. That would be really compelling. So you would have Shun, Benkei, Yoshioka, Strong Machine J, and Hamari all in one faction. Again, you don't have a lost post in that group, but that group's going to be impossible to topple if they do go that direction. Tanaka is a real wild card to me because he's flourishing so much right now. He was not in the plans for this, but he feels like he's a potential Brave Gate challenger and champion here in the not too distant future. So you almost need a plan for him as well. I don't know really how much of a character he has still, even with him putting it all together. So I don't know that he could be a leader of a group. But you kind of want him to be the quasi-leader, which is what he's doing in D-Courage right now, which makes me hesitant that D-Courage is going to disband. But I also don't know how you necessarily add members. Daiki Yanaguchi, I think, would fit, and then it could be the new Lost Post, which is maybe the easiest, quick and easy fix. You could add Dragon Kid to team with Dragon Daya. That would be cool. But I don't think Kid can really be a Lost Post full-time. He could do it in certain matches, but if you're going to do the Yoshioka redemption arc, if Tanaka is flourishing like he is, maybe Daya just is the Lost Post. That doesn't seem right either, but Daya definitely has the least amount of momentum of the trio. I also don't really know what you do with KZ, but I kind of like the idea of KZ and Paradox, because then you could team them up with YAMATO. You could team them up with Suzumu. You could do like a triangle gate team of YAMATO, Suzumu, and KZ, or YAMATO Kid and KZ, Kid, Suzumu, KZ. I think all that would be really cool. Those guys can have a fun triangle gate run in whatever the remodeled Paradox is. Strong Machine J, I don't know that he's cut out to be a leader, but you kind of want him to be a second in command. I like him kind of as a second to Shun. I think that might be where we end up with, because if Yoshioka is going to go full board with a redemption arc, it seems like he can't be like third or fourth in a group. He has to be first or second. So talking it out with D-Courage, I think D-Courage kind of has to stay. So maybe Kikuta only disbands Vibes. And then, KZ goes to Paradox, UT goes to Team Mexico, Strong Machine Gate, J goes to Shun and Hamare. And then you can also disband the Mochizuki Dojo, and then those kids end somewhere, which could be interesting. Daiki could go to D-Courage. Sahara maybe goes to Love and Peace. That could be fun. And maybe Fuda turns heel and joins Kikuta. Yeah, I think that covers everything. I'm just going off the top of the head, so I don't have a game plan. I just wanted to talk out some theories and ideas. So we're going to end it here. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.